And this will be something you can refer to. I put this together, and this is an ongoing work in progress that shows different kinds of literacy examples across the curriculum. But more importantly, I talk about two things. The pedagogy involved here versus the training requirement that may be involved, and how Adobe's been able to change the way individuals can learn. There's no question that people need to learn how to learn, especially our students. And we have spent a lot of time at Adobe providing all sorts of ways to learn what an individual needs to learn based on a particular requirement, project-based learning, task-based learning, and this is important. Also, what we have available here is there'll be a link you see here that will discuss or talk about how you as educators can quickly get into the Creative Cloud. And this is coming from one of our stellar folks at UNC Chapel Hill, Todd Taylor, who has put together a curriculum guide based on the way he has been able to transform his classroom and some of the other work at UNC. Todd is an English professor originally, and what Todd brings out here, and I think we'll agree. Where do we start when it comes to making some sort of digital transformation or some sort of digital literacy initiative or fluency? So it really is what is the problem we're trying to solve, whether that's an assignment we would need to get further depth, better skills. What is it we need to build to get our point across and make it better? The other important thing is what does the class require? What do our classmates or collaborators require? And specifically, what do we need to learn to get that job done or that assignment done within the classroom? So the other important piece as publishers, as authors, is what knowledge do we want to produce and share? Now, when we start to think about that, it becomes kind of essential to understand where to begin. These are some pointers that I've put together that helped me both in my classroom and also when I work with faculty all over the country over the years. The idea is not necessarily to reinvent assignments, but I find providing alternative submission options for these assignments or activities is a good way to ease this in. The other important thing is that some people have a problem, or not a problem, but a challenge knowing where to begin. And I suggest, take the assignment that is most successful, the easiest assignment or the easiest topic that you can present in your class, and maybe start from there. And this way, everyone's gotten in their comfort zone and trying this out, especially based on time and the schedule, can adapt accordingly. I also think that up-leveling traditional assignments and offering creative ways to do these projects as options is an easy way to get students motivated. The important thing is that in this day and age, the classroom instructor does not have to be the software expert. We hear endlessly from students who are either grad students, who are adjuncts, and even students themselves that are totally fine with learning on their own, especially when they're given incentive and links to help this move forward. So the idea of that flipping of the responsibility over to the student is not something that is going to be received with a lot of pushback. And student curiosity and excitement, they want to be publishers. They're very good at publishing to social networks, but when they need to publish in a way that demonstrates their soft skills, and the soft skills are really the skills that transcend a GPA or their diploma's major. This is that we call the T-shaped student, where they really broaden the T, where their base of that T is where they're actually what they're actually doing, and this is their diploma, as we said, or their certifications. And I think an important thing is to think of ourselves as guides on the side, so we can guide students to effective resources in demonstrating these skills as they move forward. And ultimately, when the student graduates, when the student moves on, they need to differentiate themselves from their competitors. And having a valuable portfolio, a curated example of what they can do beyond their major, and how to incorporate this into their resume or their curriculum vitae, they can really make a difference. So I've got some examples here that I will look at during the section today. But more importantly, you've got these links. You can look at these much more carefully and see how these are done. For example, we talk about digital literacy studies. We focus on literary or media analysis. This is provided by several university staff around the country who have shared some of the things that they've been doing with their students. So you'll get a background here of what they used to create this and the actual project link itself. Video is an extremely powerful and easy way to demonstrate skills that show thoughtful analysis. So looking at the way we can incorporate video can be done in multiple ways at multiple levels with different software, which I'll discuss as well. When it comes to websites or interactive web text, design, experience design, things that can be done, you can look at these here. You can see what software was used for that particular setting, and ultimately examples of this and how that was done as well. When we look at other things here, the idea is there are many ways to enhance. We think of all compositions can include audio, video, text, and imagery. And when you take those four components and they put their own personality or their own inner voice into what they're doing, this is how that creativity and that confidence grows in a digital literacy environment. So again, these are going to be something you can look through and analyze. And if you've got questions or thoughts about this, I encourage you to reach out to me directly, and we can talk about how an idea you have and how you may best want to get that rolling and out. Now, we could do this with your academic technologists, your academic support teams. We can do this with faculty. This is the fun part of my job, believe it or not. So more examples: science, technology, education, STEAM, and arts. There are examples here. We'll be looking at these in the course of today's session as well. But I wanted you to see the breadth of things that could be done and hopefully spark some thoughts and ideas within your environment. Here, for example, is a link, and you can see this in action. This is an interactive biology report using 3D, which was either found online or created independently, but assembled within Adobe software, in this case Acrobat, to provide a very interactive environment. When it comes to visualization, for example, here's a math example. You can click and look at this, in which this is actually a high school. This is actually a high school assignment in which students in calculus used 3D modeling to explain the equation and formula behind the way those particular shapes were described. So these are available to you. You'll have these. I'll put the link in the chat pod before we leave. When we look at anything to do with business, branding, or marketing, we have a number of ways this can be done. Everyone's got a brand. Everyone's got a personal brand. They may be starting their own identity. They may be starting a startup. They may be involved in a Kickstarter campaign. We have ways to rapidly prototype these applications using something called Adobe XD. You'll see examples of stuff done by students around the country here with this the XD examples here. This is a video that explains very quickly how to get started with some of the software. And that's the real important thing. How do I get started quickly and not have a problem um, reading and keeping track and flipping pages and stuff? But ultimately, the capstone of all this comes in the area of a student portfolio. And we can spend some time to talk about this in a moment. But we at Adobe think of a student portfolio not as an assessment tool, but a tool that is created to demonstrate a particular skill set or particular strength that they've got. So think of this as a curative portfolio. Multiple portfolios can be created within Adobe's software that allow them to create this in ways that they can personalize and in ways that they can share with nothing more than a URL. I'd say 90% of Adobe's uh, content that is ultimately created and published can be referenced via links and embed code. So it works very nicely with LMS systems and embedded websites. There are examples here that we can look at as well. But here is the part that we really want to focus on to show you the kinds of learning resources that we have available at Adobe. We spent the last 6 years really focusing strongly on providing different types of learning avenues for users of all ages, whether they're in the application at the time or they're actually able to, open up right within the Creative Cloud, and you'll see that shortly, how they can find these things. So I have a lot of really good links here, things that can help you internalize and cement what we have. So today's particular session is really about an overview with some examples so that you can feel more confident as you start to adapt this or adopt this in your classes or in your departments. So I'll stop right there, and if you have any thoughts or questions about that, feel free to unmute and ask. Okay, then. So we'll keep moving. So what I'd like to do here, let me just exit out of that. And one of the first things that's important is the link that for Todd Taylor's work, and this is the first link in those resources. This is a treatise, if you will, that Todd Taylor has put together, how to use Creative Cloud across the curriculum. He gives examples. He talks about this in a very, very meaningful way. So what he's actually talking about is something that everybody who has Creative Cloud has access to right from their desktop. Now, if you look up top here, this is the Creative Cloud desktop application. This is a place where students can, or anybody for that matter, can download the software they want. They can also use this as an avenue for learning directly from that particular top there. Let me just turn this off for 1 second. Pardon me. Okay, sorry about that. Multiple tasks in my room here. So this is one avenue for learning. So let's just see what we mean by all this. Depending on what you're working with, you could go quickly to the application of your choice and get into those tutorials directly. Now here's a sample of what's possible when a user needs to start to learn at a level that works for them. The files are provided to them so they can follow along with the videos that are available. And these videos scale and work on any kind of device, whether it be a phone, a tablet, or a desktop. At the end of each of these sessions, you see the outcome, what you learned, what you're able to accomplish. So when this is taken and utilized in a resource
Let's take a look at how
scaffold,
Photoshop is laid out
you see
to
an
help you
example
get
here.
comfortable with your workspace. To follow along.
So that's one when you want to get to learn a product from the get-go. But you may be someone who already knows something, in which case you go right into tutorials or type in directly what it is you need to learn. Another avenue for learning and support comes from this tab here. Whether it's getting started or going to working with tutorials, whether you be a beginner or an experienced user, you can get started. Here's a getting started course. Here's a photo editing course. These kinds of resources are the perfect resources to provide to students so that they become better architects of their learning objectives. That's the best way to put that one. So this is something that's available right from the desktop itself, but it's also available, these kind of things are available right within, and I'm just going to switch this over to my tablet to show you how this works as well. So you just see this. Let me jump here and do a quick recording. That's me, but I want like to show my iPad. Here we go. So let me just view full screen. So what you're seeing right here is my iPad here, but something called the Creative Cloud Desktop tool, which is right down here, is another way to not only learn tutorials by app, continue learning. This is a way to keep track, on any device, and that's what's important about the Creative Cloud ecosystem. Your learning, your creation, your progress is synchronized between all your devices. So you could have the individual could come in here, look to see what they want to work on, whether it's project based or product based, and they can continue to work. So I can, just click on that or tap on that within my device and get that same information here. So the just-in-time how do I do it information is available within that Creative Cloud Desktop app, and that's what we see right here within the Creative. This is just something you can pull down for Android or iOS and keep working. Now we have a number of additional mobile apps which are discussed nicely within the curriculum guide for working with the Creative Cloud. And I'm going to go back to Todd Taylor's thing right here. And this is a great matrix to take a look at. One approach is to decide, first of all, what, as we said earlier, what it is that you want to create, or what kind of problem are you trying to solve or explain. And then an approach for the faculty would be such that, well, if you need to work on something that is involving images, for example, photographs and illustrations, these are the mobile apps that can make that possible. These are the simplest ways to get going with practically no learning curve at all. And then when you want to transition or start to integrate and use the more powerful tools, these are the choices that would work best for that particular media type that you're building, or that type of channel you want to build too. So this helps you kind of break apart and see how your syllabus is laid out and how your assignments are laid out, so you can connect the dots based on your unique situation with your students or your course, and provide options and pathways to learning. Audiovisual is a very important thing, whether it's video itself or whether it's podcasting or video podcasting. That's all within, and Todd shows you those specific applications that do that job best at Adobe. Whether it's the web, for example, you want to create a presentation, you want to build a portfolio. Now, Todd also provides additional links to content that is available on the Adobe Education Exchange. Now, the Adobe Education Exchange is free. It's called edx.adobe.com. This is a site of over 500,000 educators worldwide, roughly 50% in higher ed and 50% in K-12, that provide tools and resources that they have found work for them. And they actually, you can submit this to the EdXchange, providing the areas that's covered, the age levels, the duration. Are there any performance indicators that need to be addressed, the materials needed, and also the resources. So think of this not as much of a training site as a pedagogical resource site. Now, these could be how to do things versus how to set things up. For example, you may have a grant and you have to think about the best way to outfit a new lab or a new facility. Well, within the EdXchange, there are there's a whole community that you can tap into and find birds of a feather, either within your state, within the country, or around the world, of how things have been done. So this is a great peer learning community that is international in scope. So that gives you the other side. We've got the training side, which is so briefly, and then we have the more of the learning side of things. So that's an important way to think about, how am I going to get this into my classroom? And I want to ease this in such a way that it energizes my students, it energizes, the way I teach, and hopefully provides a very, very important skill set that is something that the user will take as they move forward. So the EdXchange is very important. The Adobe Learning sites are critical. This is important. So that's the tutorials. We also have other types of tutorials just for students, and this is also in that Spark page that I spoke about, where students can start to look at projects and what they want to do based on the assignment, or maybe what they'd like to work on. So let's look at a professional resume, for example. What does that exactly entail? So they provide what it is they need to work with, sample files to investigate, open this up, and pardon me, analyze this, see how this is going to work, and follow along. So, we have many pathways to learning that, when students have access to this, the motivated ones, or the ones who, definitely want to consume, or we say, eat the dog food that they consume every day. They want to become publishers. They want to become authors, and they want to definitely get the next job or the next grant. So this kind of learning comes, from the eye of the student. Now, we talk about makerspace, and we talk about making things that can be used to essentially enhance or augment anything that you're doing. We have a whole site here, we call the Make It Center at Adobe. These are new. These are constantly updated directly. There's totally no restriction on IP to use any of this. You can use this without any attributions necessary, but it's always nice. So this is, again, an area to address all the things that typically are challenges for students today moving into the workforce or the graduate schools tomorrow. So we're trying to fire on all cylinders here when we work with this. And we also have examples in the Spark page that I'm working with here of what students actually create within our product called Adobe Behance. Now, Adobe Behance is part of the Creative Cloud ecosystem. Let me just jump over here and if you have Adobe software and you go to adobe.com, when you're signed in, this is your homepage. So we saw how to find apps, learning, working with assets of that nature from our persistent desktop tool at the top, but also right from the Adobe homepage, I can look for software, I can learn more, but here, we get down here, how do I work with the community, or how do I build my reputation within a community of creators, either through a portfolio website. We click on this right here. These are templates that allow me to put things together. I have samples in there. You can see this. You can see more examples. You can pull these out. And these are very robust ways without any coding that a user could provide any number of portfolios right within the portfolio environment at Adobe, or even if they've got their own, or if you have your own URL, your own domain, and you want to deliver these from your particular website. So that's a very nice feature to make available. The use of portfolios, the creative network. Behance is something that is used essentially as a LinkedIn for creatives. But when you look at some of these examples, you'll see that, and this is a link that I have provided here. Let me just slide over here for a second. Let me stop this for a minute. If I go to these examples here, let me scroll down to the bottom. I thought I had this one called up in my screen, but let me just slide through here. Yeah, this is one I like right here. The Behance Student Showcase. This one right here, and let me just go into slightly different mode here. 1 second. This is a showcase of student work that you can search by student status, you can search by creative field, and you and those students can see what's going on in the creative world in education, and how can I connect with people of this nature. If I click on, for example, this outdoor activity app, we see the number of likes, the number of views it's had. If we click on that to see what it is, we see that particular student talking about what she or he has built. We see where it is in the appreciation scale. This project can be shared. They provide the necessary tags here, but more importantly, it's a way to meet other people. And by clicking on that particular person's site, you can follow them on the Adobe Behance site, but you can also look at their resume. They can provide their resume here if they choose to. And this also is, again, a great way to build a virtual network of like-minded students, like-minded faculty, and getting your work noticed, getting their work noticed in ways that are extremely powerful. So I've been talking for a while, but I'd like to stop a minute if anyone have any thoughts or questions about what they've seen so far. I don't know if I mute if you're on. Oh, there we go. Any questions? All right.
I'm assuming not. Yeah, let's just keep moving on. If anybody has any specific questions about learning a specific feature, make sure to ask, break into the conversation to ask that as well.
Yes, by all means. All right, well, what I'd like to do is just show you some of the newer applications here that are an example of what's possible working with new technologies and, more importantly, working from mobile. Now, at Vanderbilt, do you have, tell me briefly, are students bringing laptops to class by and large? In your perspective, do you see students carrying laptops to class?
Generally speaking, yes, in my class they have.
This is Melanie. In my class, they bring iPads and laptops.
Okay. How is or in the libraries or in the resource centers, are labs still very, very popular? Where labs are set up or machines are set up, or are students able to walk into those labs and connect their devices to larger screens and that sort of thing? Because we see that also.
Yeah, this is Melissa. We have a sort of a combination factor. We have very few actual labs in our libraries. There's one in the education library, but that's about it in terms of a bigger computer lab. Mostly we've got that sort of digital screen where students are bringing in their own devices and connecting that way, working in groups.
Yeah, and I think that's a trend that I'm seeing more often. The lab is either being replaced or transitioned from a landing space. For example, what I mean by that is there are larger screens, there are, different, perhaps it's a keyboard there's a trackpad, and the student can plug in their device and continue to work. So this is a great way to provide that personal access to the content. And with Adobe's Creative Cloud, and we just saw this a second ago, I'm just going to go back to it. Let me cancel this out. And let me just go. There we go. So these mobile apps here are just a sample of the things that integrate directly with their family of actual applications. So whether you start on mobile and you go to desktop, you're able to pretty much work and create, we say iterate, improve anywhere you go. One of the tools that's very new, that just came out last month, is a tool that I think you'll find very interesting. It's called Adobe Rush, Premiere Rush. Now, Premiere Rush is a way for anybody to take video from their devices or from other sources and build a very quick video. You'll see right here that this is a video that was assembled right on a phone, actually, and the user is able to quickly, I'm just spreading it apart here, I'm scrolling through, I've got assets here, I want to see what happens, I can add captions, I can set motion graphics, I have multiple layers available to me right on my device. And what's nice about this is that, like all our newer applications, it provides a way to learn. So if I go to my homepage for a second here and click on this, and I'd like to work with or learn a new project, I'll click on that there. There is a built-in training set of materials here that they can work with. So they can follow along directly in the application and learn how to use that. So that is right here under the learning, built in right here. We click on that. It'll take us directly to sites for learning more about that particular touring of the interface, how that works. This is designed in such a way that when the user builds their particular project, that project is synchronized to the cloud. And that cloud, in this particular case, that can actually be delivered, or rather continued working with another product. So we're going to open up Premiere here. Let's see, Premiere. Now, Adobe Premiere is the standard in video editing, especially for broadcast video, short form video. We see a number of full length feature films that have been award winning films done with Premiere Pro. Now, traditionally, this was something that would scare the daylights out of someone who just opened it up. And that was one of the criticisms about Adobe's professional software is, where do I start or where do I begin? So with our new series of applications, you're able to begin working on a device or in one area, and you can then, right here, this is a Premiere Rush project. I can click on this, and I can begin to take up or pick up where I left off. You'll also see we always provide tutorials right there for people to work with and learn. So if I click on this, these are the same projects that I've been working on my phone or on my iPad. And if I want to keep working with this, I'll open up this one here, for example. It will
Steve,
open up, yes.
Steve, could you talk a little bit about, so it's, I think this syncing seems for an individual account, right? What if you had some students that were doing collaboration? Is there a way that they could sync, or share projects between their devices?
Yes, they can, and I'll show you what I mean. Within Premiere Pro itself, you can create a team project. So if I want to work on a video project with several other folks, this is a way to create a team project, and we can actually check out and check in different components there. So yes, we can. In the case of video, we can collaborate beautifully with the team project option right here. If you wish to collaborate with other applications, it will vary on the application as to how that collaboration takes place. Through the Creative Cloud desktop application, you can go into assets here, for example, and files. We can view these on the web. These are files or projects that have been created by others that I am collaborating with. So for example, this is a shared folder of projects that I'm working with some of my colleagues on. So here's a folder I'll open up that contains content that was submitted by several folks within my collaboration group, and we can comment directly within this environment here. We'll know when others are working or if they have questions in that group. So this becomes that collaboration notification center when you wish to share content or libraries for that matter. So if I open this up, for example, these are the things that were used in that particular project. This is not Dropbox. This is not Box. This is actually an area which allows the user to look at these and to work with these in their native state. So this is going to improve collaboration and also accelerate the process. Now, libraries are something along a similar line. Libraries are collections of content that can be, can be used and shared across all devices, including desktop and mobile. Now, this particular set of library material is something that was shared with me, and I can add to this. And where does that show up in other applications? Well, very quickly, if I opened up, let's say, Photoshop, well, I'll open up InDesign, actually. I like InDesign. I need to spell it right. to show you how libraries, not only as collaborative repositories, are persistent across all the devices and all the applications. So if we're working on a poster, and that poster could be a pretty complex one. While this is opening up, I'll show you what I mean. Here's a poster, a project here done by some grad students that ultimately was using a number of different resources to build this 3x4 poster. It was aggregated and composited within InDesign, but a bunch of it came from imagery that was pulled from or created from Photoshop or created from Illustrator, these figures, these things here. So InDesign is a great compositing tool. And here's an example that's actually in that Spark page. But when I go to InDesign myself and look at this, and I open up, let me see, I'll open up, I'll open up this one here. Within every application, we have those CC libraries available. So these libraries here, and I have quite a few of them, are libraries either shared with me or I've shared with others, or they could be personal ones, which allow me to take the latest assets or the latest content, and I'll go back here just to show you what I mean. This library here, we call this the XD Camp Vibes library, is available right here. Here's the XD Camp Vibes library. So where do we see this kind of collaboration really gelling and coming together? Students need to collaborate. That's one of the top skills that employers say students still lack today. Knowing how to collaborate asynchronously or virtually. You know, the day of all sitting around a table and collaborating is, you know, those are very nice times to have, but, you know, they don't need necessarily be, especially in the workspace. But the idea here is that when students come up with a project concept and, you know, who's going to do what or who's going to contribute to this, these libraries can be set up as read-write for some people or read-only for others. So as they build their collaboration skill sets, this is probably the best way to reinforce this because it's pervasive everywhere. Whether, as we said, it's on all the mobile apps, it's on all the desktop apps. So I hope that helped answer that question.
Yes, you did. That was great. Thank you.
Oh, great. Any other thoughts or questions here? There's a lot we can talk about, and I'm looking at the watch. We have about 8 minutes to go. Is there anything that I have left out, or any further questions that I can help you with?
I have a question. This is Elliot. One thing that I'm interested in is collaborative work across different universities. Mm-hmm. And would students say we're working on a project with Rice University? Would students here be able to collaborate outside of the institution in sort of the same way?
Yeah, good question. The Creative Cloud Files concept here, and I'll come over here for a second. If I go to my files area here, let me just jump back. These folders can be, if your IT group allows at the admin level, these folders can be shared with anybody who has an Adobe ID. They could be sent directly as invitations, or they could be sent as public.
Okay, so that makes sense. All right, cool, thanks.
Now, the other thing you can do now, if you work with libraries and you want to collaborate with another Creative Campus, you can do the same thing with libraries. You can share libraries. So you can have projects which are actually, going beyond just the institution. They could be done in any number of ways here. That was a good question.
All right, thanks.
Let me see if I left anything out on my list of things to check out. Yeah, let me just go right. Take a look. This happens to be Spark Page, which is a very very easy Spark family member. You want to check the links out for Spark Page, Spark Post, and Spark Video. Very easy, as Todd Taylor mentions, to get rolling, quickly. So here are some examples of some things that have been done by students using the idea of the portfolio concept. So if I click on this example, this is a final capstone in which this student has decided they want to show what they're doing. They have projects in place, whether they be photography. They can click on these things, they can look through this, they can annotate, they can collaborate, and they can share. Their video, in her case, her videography. So she's assembled and created this content. Again, no coding required. This link is persistent. They can share it, they can move it out, but then they can actually show some of the projects they did and how it was done. Here's her website that she built. She can annotate or talk about that, but ultimately she built an application to show how this could all come together. And by clicking on that, this is using Adobe XD, which is part of the Creative Cloud. And a user can actually experience what she's created. So if I click on this, she's created that mobile, or it could be a web experience or a desktop experience. And this is all available to anyone to see what she's been able to do. Potential employers, just pitching herself, showing what she can do, well beyond the fact that she may have a bachelor's degree in chemistry. However, she's really, this is something she can do, and she can show this off any way she likes.